What's good with everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Gifted Hoops podcast. I just want to say for me, I'm happy to be back in front of a camera. I've done a lot of pre-recorded content beforehand. I had some sickness with my asthma, but we're officially back covering basketball. And on today's episode of the podcast, we're going to be breaking down the San Antonio Spurs. I'm very hyped to be talking about this. I did an earlier conversation before preseason started with Spurs fan Evan. He knows a lot about his Spurs basketball. He's very excited, but obviously I have to include this before we get to the conversation. Victor Wembanyama has been spectacular through his first preseason games. He's been a marvel to watch. His defense is legit. Offensively, he's doing all the right things. He's leaking out. He's getting contact dunks. He's making reverse floaters, layups. He's just been a spectacular marvel to watch. And the confidence that he has to find his shot, find his spots on the floor has been great. And his defense has been spectacular. And again, for Wemby, for me, it's going to take some time for him to fully develop his frame to where he can fully transition to being a five-man, even though I think functionally, based on his size, it just makes the most sense to have him in that position. Victor has been outstanding. In the OKC game, which was crazy, how we got a chance to see Chet versus Wemby and how just dope that was to watch. What I saw from Wembanyama in terms of switchability, I mean, J-Dub, right? Jalen Williams, he got Wembanyama on a switch and he faked one way, went the other, absolutely embarrassed Wembanyama, made him turn his back to him. And for the 99th percentile of other players in the league, you got beat and you gave up a layup. And J-Dub broke him to where he's literally facing the other way. He gets to the basket, and in one motion, Wemby goes from this to a help side rotation to the rim, and he blocks his shot after being beat. Like, the length on this guy is just ridiculous. And the shot making and confidence with the team that he's just now starting to play with, he can be a very good player. A very good player. And that's why on this thumbnail, obviously, it has him saying he's the future, because I truly believe he is the future of the league. And it's kind of funny because if you're watching this on YouTube, I have a video from like months ago where I'm talking about Bol as the future, and not necessarily Bol the individual player, but the size and skill in the NBA, where that's going in the league, how you're seeing multiple players come in at like 6'9", 6'10", 6'11" with true ball handling skills and playmaking skills, but also just a complete 3-level score package. And I feel like there's a lot to credit to that evolution and growth. Obviously, what we've seen Kevin Durant do at his size with his shot making has influenced a new generation of hoopers. But the idea of size and skill and being able to do everything is really the LeBron and KD effect, where you have two wings for the most part who can create offense with the ball in their hands, get to their shots, and create for others. Like Cade, another great example. Even Luka Doncic, like a prototype of a Harden / LeBron type of mode, where you're just creating offense from the wing position. You're seeing these things for the league more and more each year. Paolo Banchero, who we talked about in our previous Magic podcast, it's another example of the size and skill coming. And with Victor and Chet, they have the potential to be some of the best bigs we've ever seen, especially since they're so young, like 19, 20 years old, coming into the NBA at a time where sports medicine is the best it's ever been, and athletes' careers are being extended longer than we've ever seen because of it. So I'm super excited to see how this pans out for Victor and for the rest of the league. But getting back to this podcast, of course, in this specific episode, we will be discussing everything San Antonio Spurs basketball. And me and Evan talked briefly on the last season for the Spurs and how things went for them in terms of their masterful tank, the Dejounte Murray trade, and all of the positive benefits that we saw from those places. I gotta say, for the Spurs, man, for you to tank the way that they did was elite, because they were still competitive at the start of the season. They still beat a lot of good teams. They just found the right time to completely fall off and get that pick. And obviously in sports, it's kind of weird how sometimes the right play for your franchise is to lose a lot of games, because truthfully, no one wants to lose. In theory, every team is trying to make moves to put themselves in a better position to win a title. And sometimes doing that is losing games. And for the Spurs to find a way to keep the guys' confidence levels up while also losing games to get a generational talent like Victor, I think that type of balance has to be commended, because it's very hard to have both of these things exist at the same time, but still maintain the culture of winning that we've known the Spurs to have. And even though they haven't won anything and they've looked pretty bad ever since DeMar DeRozan left, we have seen the fundamentals and like the great aspects of basketball still be taught through and through their organization. So for me, I was saying it before the draft, if Victor Wembanyama ends up as a San Antonio Spur, we're talking about a guy that's going to a great franchise that has the positioning and has the history of knowing what to do with bigs at that size. But the skill set is something we've never seen before. So the Spurs had to do something different where it's not just trying to fit him into the system, but really working around his talent and making it fit and making it work with your franchise. You cannot just stifle his talent by saying, okay, Victor, you're just going to be the traditional big, no more pull-up threes, no more shots off the bounce, just rebound, do post hooks. But they can still add the fundamental side to his game even more on top of his outlandish skill. And when you think about what that projects to be, we're talking about one of the best players of all time. And obviously, he has yet to play a single NBA regular season minute. But if the preseason is any indication of what we're seeing so far from Victor, he is just untenable and it's very hard to deal with him. Now, I think he's more efficient when the ball is not in his hands and he's being more so a play finisher where he's attacking closeouts, he's leaking out in transition, he's finding catch and shoot opportunities, or if he's curling off of screens. But the confidence and the flow, like the way he dribbles the ball and the way he gets lower, that's the skill part of his game. So it's gonna be fun this year seeing how that pans out, how that plays out. Let me know in the comments if you're gonna be tapping in the Spurs games this year. I know I will. I'm probably gonna even go see Victor when he comes to Detroit. Got to do that. Obviously, Detroit, Victor Wembanyama, the Detroit French connection is slightly there. So I'm down for that. But yeah, I've said a lot. I haven't been live in front of a camera, not doing any pre-recorded content for some time now. So I'm going to officially transition into the episode. If you want to support, make sure to tap into this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. I know we've been gone for some time, but again, I had some health concerns coming up and I needed to handle those things. So we did that. But officially, we're back. I'm going to be spamming a lot of podcast content because the NBA starts in literally 10 days and we still have like 6 to 7 teams to cover until that time is officially here. So I'm locking in. Appreciate y'all support. Let's get right to it. What's good with everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Gift Dudes podcast. As you can see, I'm wearing the same shirt from the previous Brooklyn episode, and that is because we are doing these pods back to back. The grind don't stop. But I would like to welcome everyone to episode 35. That's right, 35 of the Gifted Who's podcast, where I'm joined here by a passionate Spurs fan, and we're talking about Spurs basketball. Evan, feel free to say hello to the people.
Yo, what's going on? Evan Townsend, been doing this Spurs media, nonsense for a couple of years. Also cover the NBA draft as well. So yeah, man, just happy to be here. Happy to have me.
Happy to have Evan on here for this podcast because I think for the Spurs, you need to have a delicate understanding of vision and direction, but also cap space, contract extensions, and things of that nature. And there's a lot to talk about with the Spurs. For the people listening, I understand that some of you might not be hip to Spurs basketball. Some people might not be invested in Spurs basketball, but I think with Victor Wembanyama going to the San Antonio Spurs and the path line that they have planned out for that vision, I think it can make for a great conversation. So make sure to tap into this podcast. Also, on the audio platform, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, make sure to tap in, 5-star, all those things. It helps the channel grow as well on YouTube. But let's get right into the conversation. So I'll let you know this right now, right? For me personally, this podcast, what I've been doing, I've been covering all 30 teams. And for the San Antonio Spurs, this is the team that I have been excited to get to and talk about because obviously they have the number one pick of pretty much all number one picks for a lot of people, a potential generational superstar in Victor. But before we get there, for all these podcasts, what I like to do is guide us to that moment. And I think we have to talk about before this is the job the Spurs did in moving off of Dejounte Murray and getting the assets beforehand to put them in place to surround Victor with good players, potential assets, and also to get Victor after the 2023 season. What were your thoughts headed into 2023?
Yeah, so this Dejounte Murray debacle was really like the highlight of a lot of people's, let's just say, there's their discourse on online last year on Twitter. It was a big deal. A lot of people were confused on just what was going on. He never really spoke out disrespectfully about the franchise. Right after the season, he was literally just tweeting memes and actual screenshots of like his Seattle brother, Zach LaVine, trying to like recruit him to come to the Spurs before he got his extension with the Bulls. And all was well. He was an all-star. He represented the team well. He spoke well. He did anything and everything he was supposed to do. He's pretty much like the quiet, all-star replacement that had room to grow, and everyone kind of respected him. He was in the same arguments, and people were having arguments online of, oh, would you take Dejounte Murray or Darius Garland or LaMelo Ball? And now that's kind of been clear. I'm not saying that's on the Spurs. It's the Spurs' fault. It's the Hawks' fault. We'll talk about the trade now, but it was great value for that trade. Four picks. It's three that are unprotected, but that last one could obviously convey. And it's going to be a good while for those picks come to town if they actually do stay with the San Antonio Spurs. I know people like to say that when are they going to put all the chips on the table and get Wemby some help and not stop resulting to the draft. But it's going to be a few years, and I think that those 2027 picks and beyond are going to be super clutch. But real quick, I know a lot of people like to compare who got what for this package and who got what with this CBA, but it was a great trade, and Brian Wright did his thing. He's been the GM for about 3 years now, going on 4 seasons. He didn't have the best tenures in the previous 2 teams he was, at least having some type of word in on management, but now he's done a great job. The only player besides Danilo Gallinari and 3 picks that was on the table that didn't actually come to fruition, besides John Collins, was Onyeka Okongwu. And, that could have been something. Maybe we could have thrown a little bit more picks at it, but, he's not too greedy. Brian Wright did a great job. And obviously Wade Danilo got in position to be one of the worst teams in the NBA. I know a lot of people hate to see their team lose, but, you got to throw out a lineup of Devontae Graham, Stanley Johnson, Don Barlow, and Gorgie Ding every now and then. You got to just tank for the rest of them. And obviously you got the number 1 pick. Everyone was talking about, oh, where does he need to be for the big media and for where it's prepared for him. Right. We want to be a Spur all along. He said that himself many times. It's not just like the Tony effect. It's not just the French connection. You want to be with the franchise, and it's just set in stone. Literally, I know you remember all the crazy stories about how the superstition from people's birthdays being on lottery day from Spurs management, or all that kind of good stuff. But hey, I think the Spurs knew about it way beforehand. They have a $500 million facility they're opening up for training camp tomorrow. $500 million, man. $500 million. And it's the Victory Performance Center. Yeah, it was set in stone, man. It's just set in stone. So a lot of these things, a lot of people are, from Spurs fans' perspective, they're worried about how they can build around the team and how they can possibly get in position to where it's not like a situation maybe like Luka possibly in the next few years or another disgruntled star. But, he says, he wants to win. He has a lot of his personal friends in and around in his life in San Antonio. They just got a house out there, supposedly, according to one of my friends. So he's set in stone, man. He's welcome there. He's done all the right things. said all the right things as of late. And yeah, it's super exciting, man. The preseason is less than a week away. So yeah, super exciting.
See, I gotta say this, man, the Spurs for years, Evan, the Spurs have always been a calculated franchise. And what I gotta say is, for you to get rid of Dejounte Murray when he's at the peak of his powers, it feels like such a Spurs move because you're getting value at the right time. Because realistically, I don't think the Spurs wanted to sign him to a long-term extension that he was looking for. You trade him at the perfect time where now that problem is on Atlanta, not the Spurs. And you get not one, not two, you get 3 unprotected picks in that deal with value coming back. Not to mention the Spurs being genius in drafting Sohan, which I think Sohan really projects to be this like wingish type that can play super physical defense, this nice 4-man who could potentially space out to the corner but fit in perfectly to the idea of what they're trying to build before Wemby takes that next step in terms of being like that true 5. But like you said, not only do they do that, but then coming into the season, it is the perfect time to make a move like that. Because by getting rid of a player the caliber of a Dejounte Murray, you're now putting yourself in a position where, okay, we can still try to be competitive, sure, but we're clearly going to be tanking in a way to get Victor Wembanyama, who is this generational superstar that we've seen for multiple years. I remember the first time they showed him, he was super skinny. Everyone doubted how good he could be, all this and all that. And then a year later from that, he's dunking all over Gobert, and then he's playing overseas. Like, it was crazy to see the hype around Victor and how big it got. But for him to go to Spurs, I mean, for this Spurs team, it's not like you're getting a guy that's from the States. You're getting an international prospect that grew up watching the Spurs, grew up watching Manu, Tony, all these guys, and feels embraced by the Spurs community already. So for him to be like fully happy to be there, and for the Spurs to have the genius to make a move to make them worse in a position to get him, and then play out a season where you somehow find a way to not just get Victor, but somehow stay true to the Spurs integrity of we're gonna fight. Like, I remember the starts of the season, the embarrassing upset that y'all gave to the 76ers, who started this season off terrible, right? Like, that's what the Spurs did. And then you find the right pockets in the regular season to regress, slow down, lose more games, and still get Victor Wembanyama. Were you satisfied with what your team was able to accomplish in 2023?
I mean, of course, you got the number 1 pick, and it was tough to watch at times, but overall, you were spot on with your take, man. When it comes down to it, the Spurs beat a lot of great teams. They were in the running and needed a fourth quarter closer without a solidified one. Keldon Johnson was taking 20 shots a game last year. Devin Vassell only played a little more than a quarter of the season. And when it comes down to it, without having a closer, a bunch of young guys, and pretty much everyone being in evaluation mode and see if there can be long-term pieces for this team, there's a lot of pressure. But with good, just the good old Spurs basketball, the Spurs way, the classic, we're going to wait until the last 4 seconds to get the best shot available, the pass and screen away, find your cutter, hit your cutter, always be available, get the best shooters in their favorite corners, in their favorite wing. They were one of the worst rated defensive teams the past 4 years. Before Dejounte, they were in the mix for being a play-in team. We let them go, and now we're the worst team. They only really improved in so many assets with this coming year with getting Victor. Obviously, the players are going to take more steps or bigger steps in the progression for their development. But I'm looking at this team being in the tier 1 of their rebuild. You got your number 1 guy, you got your solidified piece. We'll see how teams actually want to how to scout him in terms of getting him off the ball, getting him discomfort. You got to have ways to push him in his put him in his favorite position to score. Whether if it's easy, like how do you say it? Just not entertaining floaters or just easy buckets, dump downs. Whether if it's turnaround faders. We had LaMarcus Aldridge tweeting about how he wants to help him come back to the Spurs and be some type of mentor or coach. He's going to be dominant in a couple of years, but the next few years are going to be interesting to see how they can build around him. People like to say who's going to be the starter between Keldon or Jeremy Sohan. People like to say who's going to be the second or third option. It's whoever's got the hot hand. Devontae Graham's on this team. He's a 6-year veteran who's been a journeyman for the past couple of years, but he's probably going to be one of the best volume shooters from deep, from distance, not just from three, but from deep. You know, we're going to run a 4-out, 5-out offense with Zach Collins, a 40% three-point shooter from last year. It's a walking double-double. People forget that's a starting center in this league. Everyone likes to always, give credit to the decoy candidates, obviously in rankings, whether if it's Nicholas Claxton, Miles Turner, Jonas Valanciunas is popular with his teammates, this and that. Zach Collins is going to get a lot of attention this year. Zach Collins is a true defensive menace. He was foul prone when Jakob Poeltl first got traded and Zach Collins took his starting job. We have a great depth all around at every position, whether if it's great shooters at that position. We have also great defenders that are substitutes for him. So the Spurs are ready. In terms of how ready they are, they're not going to be a playing condition team. I don't think. They're not going to win more than 30, 35 games. You'll see them surprise a lot of people with more of the national attention and once they get comfortable. And obviously, training camp has just started, but these guys have been playing with each other all summer long. Nobody was at a Rico Hines freaking run. Nobody was in New York at the $500 an hour freaking elevated. What I'm talking about? Yeah, the place is taxed. We ain't worried about that. I think Victor. I think he dyed his hair I think
he sure did.
Yeah, he dyed his hair literally just to get out of the media's attention. Like I think he went to Portland one time for some Nike thing after the draft, after summer league. He went to a Nike hoop summit. I forgot where it was exactly. Like John Moran, a couple other Nike guys were there, and then I think he went on vacation, and that was it. He needed to be away. He's been in the media, bright lights, even this Britney Spears nonsense. Right? Remember that? All nonsense, dude. That was crazy. So
that was crazy.
He gained, he said today in the media presser, he gained 15 pounds, 10 to 15 pounds. You can physically see it. I know a lot of people don't like to allude to just a simple post of him stretching and him being able to be so elusive and be able to literally do the splits at 7'5", 7'3", whatever you want to say, with shoes, without shoes. Dude has an 8-foot wingspan. 8-foot wingspan. You saw Evan Mobley be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate his second year, being just the anchorman next to Jared Allen, who got Defensive Player of the Year votes as well. People like to remember the top three, but Jared Allen got votes as well. And think about it, next to Zach Collins, a stretch big. Charles Bassey's a little undersized, 6'9", maybe 6'10" with the right shoes. Lost a lot of weight. He's our backup big. He's going to get 15, 16 minutes a game. He's going to be ready. He has a lot to prove with his new guaranteed deal. So yeah, man, I know that's a long just take there, but in terms of just the trajectory for the team, it's not going to be the most exciting team to watch. It's not going to be the best and most fun team to look forward to, obviously, besides just Wemby. But when you look past the next 3-4 years, obviously you look at teams that have a young core that's super exciting, like OKC, like Orlando. These teams are like the tier 3 or 4 of their rebuild. Remember, we're at tier 1. Give it a few years. We're gonna have an MVP candidate. We got a decoy candidate year 1. We got a future All-Star possibly maybe in the draft next year. Who knows if we can do a soft tank. So it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be a super exciting time, man. Most definitely.
Yeah. So you said a lot there, and I like what you said because again, what you're focusing on are the No. I love that because that matters because I think for the Spurs, a lot of people aren't looking at the details with their roster. I think for Victor coming in, obviously, I think he projects to be a 5. I know people want to do this thing where, he's long, he should be a 4. He should be a center. And I say this because where basketball is right now with his length, again, 8-foot wingspan, but also with what I saw him with my own eyes when I logged in the league pass and watched him overseas, when I saw the way he was impacting the court, when he was at the 5, when he was in those slots, when he was blocking shots from the paint to the perimeter quickly, when he was being switched out onto guards, that versatility is the future of the NBA. And I say this because we just saw the Denver Nuggets win a championship with their center as the best player on the court, with their center as their focal point offensively, as the lead decision maker for their team. Victor Wembanyama, while he might not have those same types of skills yet, defensively, he could be one of the best prospects we've ever seen in the game. And if you compare that with what he can already do offensively in terms of having a turnaround jump shot, having the size to get from the three-point line to the paint in like 2 long steps with that stride, and his understanding of how to make secondary passes, I think Victor Wembanyama can be a very, very productive basketball player. But it takes time. A lot of people are trying to put the pressure on Wemby to where he has to come in and average 18 points. I disagree with that. I think Victor coming in needs to structurally understand the pace and the speed of the NBA game and understand how to slide in perfectly. So to your point, having Zach Collins be there as a guy that can provide a bigger presence with Wemby as he fills out his frame, as he gets stronger, makes a ton of sense to ease him in for his rookie year. But just because we're saying ease him in, let's not make a mistake about this. Victor, day one, will be a very impactful NBA player. I think you can make a legitimate argument that he can make an all-defensive team in his first year. And I say this because the way he impacts the court visually with the size and the length near the basket, even on the perimeter, I think day one you're going to see those skills come in. The only question is he going to play 65 games in his first year? I don't know if the Spurs are looking for that to be their vision. I think they're going to be super patient and supportive of Victor's journey to the NBA. But if he is able to do that, that means his conditioning and the work that he puts in on his body, which is a unique NBA body. Again, we've never seen someone with these physicals be a perimeter type of player in this type of game, right? So for him, if he's able to manage those things and play that amount of games, you have to, assume that his conditioning is at that level. And if it's at that level, that means he's getting the reps. He's understanding the game more, because people have to understand playing basketball. I know this sounds crazy because we should know this, right? But playing a lot of basketball is how you get better at basketball. Repetition is the answer for you to get better at many different things. So for Victor to come onto a Spurs team that has young talent, that has guys that can play defense and fit alongside him, when he figures it out towards the middle part of the season, we could be talking about some special stretches where he's putting up like 6 blocks a game, 8 rebounds a game, like just, nice stretches where he can fill things out as he goes. So for the Spurs team, they're in the perfect position to do that. And like you said, a soft tank could definitely be in the works, which I don't even think the Spurs need to soft tank, because I think the Western Conference is naturally that competitive to where they could just outright not win games, but they can still have the competitive DNA to fight and instill that sense of confidence into the young players. And they already have confidence. I mean, I've heard players come out like, we can make the playoffs, and they should have that mindset and belief coming in. So I personally, while I agree it was hard for me to watch many Spurs games last year, for me at least, what I'm doing this year is I'm creating a spreadsheet for all 30 teams, and I'm going to track exactly how many Spurs games I watch. And I really want to see the growth of Victor Wembanyama. I really want to see the Devin Vassell, Victor Wembanyama 2-man game with the shooter that he is and the gravity that he bends to a floor. I want to see Victor attacking more closeouts off of the catch, being more decisive with the basketball. Because when he's doing that at that size, there's not many people that can get in his way. So those are my thoughts on it, Evan.
No, for sure. I mean, you're spot on, man. Time will tell with a lot when it comes to Victor. A lot of people just don't know that he's never really played the center position except for like just ground level basketball before he came over to play in the pros when he was like 17. He was on Tony Parker's old team, Asheville, before he came over to Mets 92, which is Boris Diaw's team, which is so funny. The Spurs connection, man, like I said, it was always there.
It's crazy.
He thrives being just as just a ball hunter in all aspects, whether if it's being the secondary guy like Evan Mobley, recovering for Jared Allen, or obviously just being we're possibly going to see some small ball 5. I'm not going to count it out. He is 7'5", and our center depth, while it isn't the best, I was giving Charles Bassey his love. Sandro Mamas-Cuvelli, thinks that three times fast. He's not the best rim protector as either. He's probably going to play a little bit more of like a face-up forward, Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell type of guy. But you're looking at just a freak of nature that's going to control every single play. I'm talking like every single play. So we're going to push him for 30 minutes, right? Just push. Maybe 27, 28, 29, right? But he's going to push 30 minutes, right? That's 70% of the game, right? 70% of the game, 60%, right? Fair, right? So if he's on the court 60% of the game, and on defense, every single play is being affected, he's going to throw his arms out. We obviously, you know, we'll figure out who's going to be the last wing defender. Obviously, Devin Vassell isn't just quite the best. Trey Jones is above average. He gets a lot of steals. Jamie Sohan is a defensive menace. He may not start, but he's going to get started 11 minutes if it's not Keldon, who technically is one of the worst rated defenders in the NBA, just because people were attacking him last year. Just because they were attacking him. They knew. But it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I expect some small ball 5 lineups with Jeremy Sohan, an all forward lineup with the newly acquired Seti Osman, who made the team apparently. People are excited to see him. He has just as much love with his Turkish fans, seemingly on Twitter, just as Wemby. So Spurs did a great job, man. You know, they had a really bad defensive team the last, honestly, ever since White left. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's been in the 25 and below tier ranked ever since, even when they're in a play-in team. You know, Dejounte Murray, Derek White, they're not walking through that door. Obviously, you know, having Wemby is going to change a lot of things, but we have to fill out that rotation and only play 9 to 11 guys at most. It's not going to be open tryout runs for a lot of people. It's the next man up, and when people are injured, hey, you better be ready. So I forgot how many total, but there's times the amount of national games the Spurs are going to have this year compared to last year. I think they had one, if I'm not mistaken, on TNT or one of those other televised.
I'm going to see Victor play too. When he comes to Detroit, I'm buying tickets and I'm watching that experience. I'm doing that for sure.
Oh, for sure, man. We'll have to talk about that. I think I'm going to a lot of the games out down here in South, like OKC next week, and then New Orleans in a couple weeks. But all the Texans games, of course. But hey, man, we're probably at the host of space afterwards, something like that. It's good. Should be fun. I think when it comes down to it, just the overall look, and I'll close this take out in here. Just like overall look for the Spurs is basically to see who's going to be fulfilling this solidified role for the long term. Obviously, Wemby's the number one. Let's just compare him to Luka, right? He's going to have a Luka Doncic type impact his rookie year, and then year on and year on, mostly on the defensive side, obviously, right? But let's call it spade a spade, right? We know Jamie Sohan's not going anywhere, right? Devin Vassell just got his bag, his extension, $27 million. Hallelujah! Shout out to CAA. Shout out to you. Shout out to y'all. And you like to think Trey Jones is a backup point guard who's not as good as his brother, but he's on a better trajectory for his brother year by year. Just doesn't shoot the 3 ball as well. But when you think about it, okay, so let's imagine who's going to be the starting center for the future. Is it Zach Collins, or is he going to be a backup? The Spurs were in the mix for signing Brook Lopez, but he took $2 more million to be back with the Bucks. Okay, screw you. Austin Reeves took $10 less million to go back to the. I understand the Laker boy is cute, you know what I'm saying? The Taylor Swift rumors, whatever, blah blah blah. But dude, like, you could have. I get it. I understand. I was really looking for. I was honestly setting stone on that.
I thought Austin was a Spur.
I thought it. You know, he can. This is state taxes, man. You get to keep all your money. I know that shoe deals are crazy out there. They go crazy for him overseas, but you know, it is what it is. And then, you know, obviously the Nas Reed rumors were real. We got about 9 minutes. The Nas Reed rumors are real. And then also, what else, man? Who else were there in the rumors for? I think that was it. Everything else was pretty much smoke under the water. They kind of wanted just to let the old, I hate to say old dead weight go, but Keita Bates-Diop is probably gonna be the starter for the Suns. He may be the 5th starter.
Right.
He very well could be. And that would have never happened with the Spurs. I'm sorry. And, you know, he's got his moment now. So I know we got a lot to talk about with a little time, but yeah, man, it's going to be a long season, but we'll see how many games Victor plays. He's not as injury prone as people like to believe. A lot of the stuff that happened to him 2 years ago was before he met all the best professionals in the world. This guy when he goes on the bench, people massaging him. When he goes down to the training camp or to the training facility, he has people waiting to massage his feet, arms, legs, neck, back, everything. So yeah, not just that $500 facility, it's a whole $500 million man right there as well. So we got to make sure he's taken care of. So yeah, it's all just to be decided, but it's super exciting. So
yeah. I am excited to be watching Spurs basketball this year. I got to see exactly how many games of it I will be watching, but I will be, dedicated to watching it way more than I did last year. I think the Western Conference is tough. I know that there's not much time left on this recording, but I do have to ask you this question. Make your case, and I will clip this. Make your case for why they will still be better than the Rockets.
I hate how this is a thing. I truly do. And I really hope this will get clipped. I'm sorry if I really made this whole ordeal with the Rockets a huge big thing. I've been just laying low on Twitter just because, man, I've been getting every so often, no matter what it is in the news, I just get a Rockets just troll page in my mentions just going crazy. But shout out to them. Shout out to Will, J-Dub, Assad, everyone that I was collabing with over
Big
the summer. It was cool. It was fun. There's no there's no hard feelings, and literally when it comes down to the Rockets, they were one of my favorite teams to look forward to in the future. Obviously, the rumors were there before July even happened. They were going to get Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks after the Ime Udoka signing. The James Harden thing was a possibility, but once Ime came to town, they knew that was going to be debunked. They have a great team from their 1 through 9 rotation now. Necessarily in talent, it doesn't necessarily match up quite exactly with the Spurs. When I say that, there's guys that are defensive menaces that they have that are super athletic, and we just have shooters in depth, right? They have some of our old weight with Jock Landale. We know all of his best moves. We're gonna have Charles Bassey dominate. Let me stop. It's gonna be close. I like to think that the 2 preseason games are gonna be in regular season mode. We face them back to back next week, and it's gonna be super fun. I know a lot of people are looking forward to that. And then we played them the first week of the season as well. Right before Halloween. So yeah, man. I like to think that space. I hate to even allude to it, but I like to think that space with one of those Rockets fans kind of alluded to maybe that rivalry kind of being ignited, and the league kind of took notice. It was I hate to even amend to that because it was crazy. I really wish I didn't do it, but that was one of the most crazy NBA moments all off season. I hate to, it was just all around just a crap show, but it was super fun, and I'm glad we did it. But we'll see. I think they're in the same tier. I saw a power ranking of the Rockets being the 19th best team and possibly making the play-in race. I don't necessarily think that they're that good. We'll see how good Jalen Green is. We'll see if Sengun is the number 1 option compared to him, if they can be a 1A, 1B. Dylan Brooks is a great defender, but let's hope he doesn't shoot them off the radar. So, we'll see.
Yeah. Overall, man, I am excited because the state of the Western Conference, there's so many good teams. There's so many good plot points with all of these teams. The Spurs are no different in that. And I firmly believe that the execution of the Spurs 23 season was very efficient, where you're instilling confidence in your players early, you're beating competitive teams early, and then you bottom out elitely by not playing, certain players on certain games. I think there's a real strategy to rebuilding your team, and for the Spurs to choose the perfect, literally the timing of it is so calculated because they knew they wanted Wembanyama. You trade your player after he makes the All-Star game, peaks at this high level, and now you have something going for you. That really means something to the Spurs team and their organization and their fans. So me personally, I'm not a Spurs fan, but I'm a basketball fan. On this podcast, I've been covering all 30 teams. So I like having you on here today, Evan. Obviously, we got to chop it up more during the season for more Spurs talk and things of that nature. We got a lot of NBA content coming for sure. Please tap in with Evan. This man knows his stuff. He watches basketball. He does film as well occasionally here or there. So big shout out to Evan for that. But for the Spurs team, I think Victor is going to be a marvel to watch. It's going to be one of the best stories in the NBA, regardless of what team or player you individually support. And everyone is going to be curious in terms of how he's going to translate. He's going to have some plays where he gets dunked on. They're going to be like, oh, this is Wemby. He's not that good. He just got dunked on. And then the next game, he might put up 35 and 15 and everyone shuts up, right? Like, I mean, you have to have patience with these rookie players. And me personally, for Victor, considering how special he is on defense and what his offensive skill set can look like, I think things can be truly, truly special. And I'm excited for that. And that officially was 31 minutes with the Spurs. That was crazy. How we got all of that crammed up into 31 minutes. Evan, I appreciate having you on here for real. And I will be having you back on sometime during the season to dissect how the season is going for sure. What are your final expectations for the Spurs?
To be in for a while in the play-in race, but to ultimately not make it. For Wemby to be in the Rookie of the Year race, but possibly not make it due to not playing 65 games. I see Devin Vassell taking that step to where obviously people pay attention and know who he is. Today was very disrespectful to his name. A lot of people were saying that he wasn't worth that contract. I know 5 years is a lot with the new CBA, but hey man, he's going to be showcasing that I like to say he's this generation's Rip Hamilton. He's going to put up 24 and 4 the rest of his career. Skinny, just movement shooting wing that can play 2 or the 3. That's always going to be either the third option, the second option, or some nights, hey, we'll drop 25 and a half on you. You know what I'm saying? So Devin Vassell is a solidified stud. Sorry, I can get that out. And, they have wing depth all around. I didn't show any love to Julian Champagnie. Julian Champagnie was undrafted last year.
Yes.
He was a little bit older. I know he has a brother in the league that people got him confused with. But, man, let me tell you, him and Malachi Brandon were lighting up the summer league. These guys got to be just lighting up from 3. Him, Doug McDermott, Devontae Graham. You guys, your second units all around surrounding Wemby. Double team. Corner 3, just nothing but net, lighting up 3 or 4 back to back, and just in a quarter, So the Spurs got shooters this year, so it's gonna be super exciting. And yeah, man, I think that long term, after the season, they're gonna have around $30 million to shed in cap space. Obviously they have their pick. They have 2 picks maybe that can convey with Toronto not making the play-in or not making the playoffs, and then Charlotte being a top. It's protected, so we want them to do well. So if those convey our way, you're looking at 3 lottery picks possibly, man. And the Spurs are going to draft well. We're going to do our research. We're going to make sure everything is right and wrong with who we're picking up. And you think of it this way: people are going to want to play with Wemby, and if we don't sign any of these free agents and we don't overspend, hey. We're going to be rocking and rolling, and we're going to be on the OKC timeline in a couple of years, So yeah, that's what it's all about, man. So yes, sir. You already know.
Yeah. Well, should be fun. Appreciate everyone that made it to this part of the podcast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube at Gifted Hoops. Evan, feel free to let the people know where you are.
Yes, sir. I'm really just on Twitter or the X app, or whatever you want to call it. It's going to be a fun year for the Spurs. Also, I covered the draft, like I said at the beginning. It's going to be, I know a lot of people are saying this year's draft sucks. There's not really a solidified number 1 pick, but just you wait. These guys can really ball. A lot of solid returners and solid freshman international guys. So, yeah, super exciting.
Absolutely. Well, all of our links will be in the description below. Make sure to tap into the audio version as well. I'll catch you guys in the next episode of the Get Throughs podcast. Peace out, people. Have a good one.